my latest video on cars I wished I owned. This is owned by a friend of mine. It's good to have friends who have excellent taste in cars. This is a 1968 Maserati Mistral. And this was actually the first Maserati to be named after a wind. The Mistral being a cold wind that blows in the south of France. I mean, you think of the Mirac and the Ghibli and the Mistral. It was a thing Maserati did for a while, naming all their cars after winds, but this was the first one. Anyways, this appeared at the November 1963 Turin Auto Show and was produced after that from 1963 to 1970 and replaced the 3500 GT. It was designed by Pietro Frua and bodied by Maggiora of Turin. If you haven't seen one around, it's because they didn't make many. They made 825 coupes and 125 spiders. Interestingly enough, you could get this car either with a steel body or aluminum body, but nobody is really sure how much of either one were made. This happens to be a steel body. It came with three different engines, starting out with a 3.5 liter with 235 horsepower. Then they went up to a 3.7 liter with 245 horsepower. And finally they ended up with this one, which is the 4 liter with 255 horsepower. And the transmission in all variants was a 5-speed ZF. The weight is 3,150 pounds dry. Suspension is independent in the front and a solid axle with leaf springs in the back, which is kind of primitive, but it gets the job done. It does have 4-wheel disc, however. These days the coupes go for about 225, 250,000, and the spiders go about 2 to 3 times that value. Of course, it has the trident in the front, which apparently was on a statue in Modena, and the Maserati brothers saw the trident in the statue and decided that would be the insignia for their company. Also comes with Barani wire wheels, of course. So this was the last of the Maseratis to come with the twin-spark double-overhead cam straight-six engine. This engine was originally used in the 1954 to 1960 Formula One cars, the 250F cars, which in 1957 actually won the World Championship. It's an all-aluminum engine, has hemispherical combustion chambers. Originally it came with Lucas fuel injection, but that tends to be rather problematic, so apparently many people, including this owner, switched it over to triple Webers. Now after this car they went to the Ghibli and they put a V8 in that because everybody wanted more horsepower and they couldn't get it out of a 6-cylinder. Let me see if I can crank it up here. Pretty nice for a 6-cylinder. So interestingly enough, the fuel injection was Lucas because it was one of the very first fuel injection systems on a passenger car. And apparently the rest of the wiring also happens to be Lucas. And interestingly enough, the disc brakes are from Girling of England. You can see it printed on the reservoirs here. I also find it interesting the radiator with the filler cap on the custom-built extension there, and a little extension on the cam cover for putting the oil in. And again, it's a twin spark, so you can see it's got 2 spark plugs for each cylinder, which gives you a very complicated distributor cap there. What seems to be standard for any Maserati, you get oodles of gauges. You get the speedometer and the tachometer, obviously. Get water temperature, amps, Lucas, gas gauge, oil temperature, and oil pressure. And then you get radio, famous rocker switches, which the Italians like so much. One of the interesting things about this car is it's got a, hard to see, a key slot down here, but that is, I think, just for the steering column lock. The actual ignition is way over here on the left, like a Porsche. They put the handbrake down here by your knee, and 5-speed ZF gearbox. Notice the rear view mirrors on top of the dash, and of course you get the oodles of Italian leather on the interior. It's a true two-seater with a huge partial shelf in the back. So this is with the rear hatch open. Get tons of luggage space, and underneath the carpeted panel here is a full-sized spare. Full-size spare Barani wire wheel, and the battery's back here for weight distribution. Comment, it's a very torquey but not high revving engine. The red line's like 5,000, so you shift about 4,000, and it's got lots of grunt, but it's not like a high-strung Ferrari V12 where you're zipping it up to 8,000 or 9,000 RPM. But it certainly gets the job done. It is a fun car to drive.